A legacy, by definition, is the long-lasting impact that may come from a particular action or event in the past that is passed down to the future. She hangs on a prominent wall in my home. Before arriving, she hung on walls in the homes of my parents, moving from one to another, but always present. Her last home was on a wall above a credenza that had been one of the first pieces of furniture my parents acquired when they were married. I never knew our home without the portrait. It was something that I simply took for granted since I was very young. For many years of my early childhood, I thought that the woman in the portrait was my mother. To me, there was a resemblance, but it wasn't her. It simply was Mrs. Rees. That's what I was told, and that's all I recall. A beautiful young woman dressed in a Gilded Age gown with her hair in a chignon. The hint of a smile on her face. A large oil-painted portrait, beautifully framed. When I was a child, maybe 4 years old, my mother brought me to visit her friend, a woman named Mrs. Rees. My memory was one of a very old woman who lived alone in a house not far from my mother's childhood home in the Bronx. I don't recall all of the details, but I do know my little girl thoughts as I sat on a small covered stool in a living room as the two women conversed. Why is everything here crooked? I have no idea to this day of why I had such thoughts, but I recall that everything in the house was elegant, as was the hostess. I can almost see her now, many, many years later. Beautiful reddish-colored hair swept up into a top knot, creamy skin, soft-spoken but stately. Funny how much of that encounter I can relive. I don't remember much else about our visit, and I don't know if I ever saw the woman again. I just know that she was Mrs. Rees, and I do know that she is the woman in the portrait that hangs in my own home. Now, I don't have a whole lot of regrets plaguing my life, but I do have one very big one. Sadly, during her lifetime, I never asked my mother for an explanation of why we owned the beautiful portrait, nor did I ask about the woman in the portrait. Who was she? How was her name spelled? What became of her? How and why did my mother become her friend? My mother died in 2012, and when her house was sold in 2020, the portrait followed me to my house, and where it now, badly in need of cleaning and restoration, hangs in the original frame. I have become the custodian of Mrs. Rees. My brother is 2 years older than me. He has a good memory for things in the past. He's smart and very much a man's man. So I was amazed when I asked him if he knew anything about the mystery portrait, and he responded quickly with the words, "All that I know is that Mom told me that she's related to Jacob Riis from New York." He didn't have any more information to offer. And that was the beginning of the story. Could this really be the wife of Jacob Riis? The Jacob Riis? As in Jacob Riis Park in Queens, New York? The Jacob Riis Museum in Denmark? The Jacob Riis Settlement House? And a string of other parks and schools that honor the photojournalist and author of How the Other Half Lives. The social reformer who was honored as a powerful promoter of change in a 3-page tribute written by his friend, President Theodore Roosevelt. Jacob Riis, not Rees. Who? What? Why? I only knew a few facts, including the year 1914, that Jacob died, and the names of his 2 wives. His first, Elizabeth, the mother of his children, and his second, Mary A. Phillips, 28 years his junior. Mary's claim to fame was not only in being the wife of Jacob Riis, but in having become a financier and philanthropist known in widowhood as the first woman of Wall Street. Born in 1877 and died in 1967, she had crashed the glass ceiling selling bonds. During World War I, she helped promote Liberty Loans. In 1919, she became the head of an investment security office, the first in New York City to be staffed entirely by women. She taught investment courses at Columbia University meant for women students who, like herself after Jacob's death, were forced with managing their own personal finances. Her list of accomplishments is lengthy. She died in a nursing home in New York City in 1967 at age 90. Based on the very little actual knowledge, I became determined to find out who my Mrs. Riis was and why I had her hanging in the dining room of my modest condo in Dennis, Massachusetts. I had only the likely relationship of the woman to a famous person and nothing more than the barely visible name of the artist Victor D. Hescht and the date he completed his work, 1907. Hescht was a portrait artist who lived from 1873 until 1931. While he did beautiful work, he never became worthy of much attention, and his paintings, according to an appraiser at Eldred's, were not considered to be of value in today's market. The appraiser wasn't much of a help, but at least I knew that I had something of personal value rather than something of profit, and I could continue my search based upon that notion. So, 6 years after inheriting Mrs. Riis, I remained somewhat clueless as to the who, what, and whys. My research and inquiries have been met with a few dead ends. I did manage to find a lot of information about Jacob, his children, and his grandchildren. I read a book about him and emailed the author and one of his granddaughters, each to a dead end. Validation was important to me and still is. If this Mary Phillips Riis, the second wife of Jacob, perhaps I am not the rightful owner. Maybe Mary should hang in a more prominent place, one of the places at which Jacob Riis has been immortalized, a museum perhaps. I am willing to donate her portrait. My quest for proof continued until one day I located a picture of Mary Phillips Riis, a very old one, from a turn-of-the-century publication. In the photo, much to my pleasure, a woman who bears a resemblance to my Mrs. Riis is seated, hair piled into a graceful top knot, wearing the exact same dress as the woman in my dining room. There is no doubt in my mind that this is Mary Phillips Riis, wife of Jacob. After a lot of hard thought, I remembered that my mother had worked on Wall Street as a young woman. Could it have been there that they met? Or was it on the subway platform as they each commuted to and from work? Did my mother and Mary become friends? Did Mary recognize her beautiful young friend's intelligence and potential? I will never know the answer, but I can make up the story and tell it over and over again to visitors in my home for the time being. One day I will leave the portrait to my own daughter, and she can tell the story or make up her own. Sometimes the legacy is in the untold story. The legacy, the impact of a particular action, an event, or set of circumstances that are left for future generations.